what is fear and what is death, and what would the agents be that could overcome it? What would they be like? That's a very simple question. So we know that if someone has a fear, generally, if they feel like they have some level of protection and they feel stronger than the things that they fear, fear does not have a hold on them. So if you have a lot of power and you have a lot of energy and a lot of awareness and wisdom, this is what's pushing fear completely out of the way, because you have resources and you have different things that you can draw upon, including your breath, to dissolve any levels of fear, right? So we can automatically identify that something that's going to overcome fear is something that would be inside of you that allowed you to feel invincible. Okay. Now, there have been times that there have been people that have faced what would have been, I guess, let's say in this case, like they may have went into something and perished into that, and never in their mind at one point did they have fear of it at all. This is actually the development of the being. Like when you can get to the state of being fearless, or having fearlessness instilled inside of you, what it is that it allows you to even view life different. It's a deep level of maturity. It actually it opens up your range. It opens up the potential of what you can do. And we know this because as you get older, fear seems to creep in. It's like a brittle thing. So as the fear starts creeping in, you go less places, you do less things that have maybe some danger involved. You know what I mean? You don't drive as fast anymore. So there's all these things that start happening. And that's just on the basic level. But symbolically, what that is that the framework is getting smaller and smaller. So fearlessness actually increases your range. So the next thing here is just directly death. This procedure that we go through to transfer into another space. And because it's going to happen to anyone, it is the big elephant in the room. It's not something that we want to think about. It's going to happen to every person. They're going to leave here and then end up somewhere else. They end up somewhere else. Most people are not concerned about, because they're just like, no, I'm never going to leave. And I just don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. And to me, that's actually the root to immaturity, is when there's something that you need to address, but you just keep putting it off and keep putting it off. It's proving that it's too strong for you, that it's older than you, that it's deeper than where you've gone yet. So you could see where you would be if you went through a procedure and no longer did you fear, or no longer did you think of death as having a hold on you. Now that you can imagine that in your imagination, you can visualize that. Now you can see why a person that's like that, or a being that's like that in this society right now, you could see how that could pose some challenges if there's too many of those kind of beings. So indeed, for thousands of years, there has been an agenda to just make sure that the beings here don't become aware of who and what they are, because it makes them not fear anything, and then death does not have any hold on them. And so death is like it's almost like it's like a film. It's like an intermission. It's like an elevator within itself. So it's like either you go through, this is what happens when have many who've experienced different forms of dying. You either let go and go through, or you stay. You know, sometimes you just get pulled into the other space, but it's just like, if you could still try to hold on here, you're just having a terrible experience because you're so afraid that where you're going is going to be the end of you. You know, yet there's no end and there's no beginning. And this starts because we see others leave, and then like even others that we care about. Like I used to have, you know, a friend, you know, he sat right next to me and now he's gone. I remember we used to joke and stuff like that. He used to carry this little Bible with him. It was just weird. And then now he's gone. And I mean, that was younger. And when I was younger, and like in my 20s, I think about this guy and like how he was gone. And that would serve to perpetuate that's why we need to figure out what's going to happen when we die. And I realized later on in life that what it really was is that the communication had been severed. And that produces this level of loneliness where we miss the person. And actually, a lot of this build was inspired off of a continuous revelation about what was still the safe way to contact the ancestors, aka the dead, beyond necromancy and Goetia, which is clearly perilous. And what came to mind was the dream world, and how oftentimes I've heard directly from some of my brothers that their fathers who may have left came to them in their dream and inspired them. And it was like they were there. And, and even when they had to come back into this world, it was like a goodbye, but it was like, nah, it's not a goodbye. It's just to be aware that when you get to this space, then I'll be here. And just how the lucid dreamer, the potential is endless. And actually, I dived into another layer of lucid dreaming and the hypnagogic state and implementations on how to get oneself into that plane, and even technologies that are capable of doing that with frequency. So I went through this whole thing, but still it wasn't enough for me, because the question even came up from our sister Vrienda, who was chiming in about how in a recording I mentioned that, if somebody leaves and you never got in tune with their soul, the actual soul of the person, then it would be very difficult to continue to communicate with them, because probably what you had got familiar with was not even them. And this is a product of Klipal. It's a product of a shell that builds up over the consciousness based on fake illusionary realities that they say lackluster. So they don't have much of a shine to them. So it can kind of dim you out. And then in that dimming, you kind of become distorted. And then the being that you start living as is not really you. And then you introduce this being to another person. And then they start communicating with that being. They grow to love that being. And then that person passes on, but there's like almost no connection. So, just for the record, I did finally come up with a solution to the riddle. And it also came from something our sister Patricia was saying that was a technique that was practiced in their community 20 or 30 years ago. And it was staring in the eyes of a person that you really intended to meet their soul, because the eyes indeed that you see in the sky as the stars are actually those who have been here before and shall return again, according to the symbolism. And it brings awareness that all of those stars are actually eyes. And just why you be looking up there like, the stars, is because they're looking at you and they're remembering. And so to dive into this, we have to realize then that we have been steeped in a realm that has been fighting over the power, over fear and death as a weapon, not as a deliverer. So notice how they also seem to come hand in hand, the thing that can deliver you and the thing that can imprison you. It's like that. This is what the ancients learned about, somewhat of this dualistic nature to the reality, but they saw that as a benefit, because it actually allowed them to understand the extent of the existence of this creation, right? So there's fighting over this ability for a person to be fearless, and this essence that allows them to be fearless, and then fearing a person who does not fear death. It's almost like a chain of command. Like if you don't fear death, everybody that fears death is below you. So it's just like right away, you get the instant upgrade, and it's something that's pronounced. That's also what I wanted to make sure is very clear in this build today, is that you may see these things that you need to do sometimes as intangible. How could, me just not tripping every day and losing a lot of my energy on beefing with polarities benefit me right now? I need money. And you just like looking for this tangible thing to happen in the reality and not realizing the power of the intangible. or that the dream body is 7 times more stronger than the physical body. It proves that because it cannot suffer death. You be dying in the dream and get back up. You kung fu and them flying on up out of here. There's things you do in the dream that you cannot do in this reality, yet this reality is yet but another aspect of the dream itself. But you plug into this reality with your body. So when you leave in the sleep and when your clock changes or your body changes shift and you go into what is called the underworld, which is the ocean. This is the fish side of the soul, the dag. When it goes into the ocean, then at that moment, you're detached from the physical body, but tethered. Just like an astronaut on the tether, just like a child with the umbilical cord. So you're tethered to it, but you're in another vehicle. And so when you come back through this pipeline, because everything is pipes, look at your body, look at the intestines, look at the ear canal, look at the nose. The whole experience is just going through tubes. Like, look at every single thing about life is like a tube. Even the phallus symbol is a tube. Even the womb is like a tube. So these are tubes, right? And then you're going through all of these different realms and these portals. And so coming into this world, you plug back into this, which we call a Lord Governor. It's a pentagram. It has governance through 5 senses, which becomes the perception of the reality. It becomes also sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, right? It becomes north, east, south, west, center. It becomes quite a few different things that triangulate themselves into 5 in order to create a perception and to create a reality. So just realize, though, because in this space-time, because I'm sure we move through space-time, like even when you finally leave this space, I'm sure you're going to be at the level of picking the most optimal space-time for you to arrive in. It's like, I may just do all climaxes for the next 90 million parsecs. Like I just arrive at the climax of the situation, then, because of the perception and the level of awareness. But this is what's in front of you and around you. This is the potential of what we're talking about and beyond, because you have your own uniqueness. So I may be describing something that may be exciting to me. But from this algorithm and from this blueprint, you'll be able to dial into something that is just for you. But I do find that many of our needs, wants, desires happen to be the same, because we've all come from this mother. So I would have to say again that just that awareness that they're beefing over this power of resurrection. Like if you could resurrect yourself, right, with full consciousness, like what is death to that kind of being, right? They're having issues with a full-blown light spectrum. It's like, how am I fearing you? I can pass right through the pore of what you are. I can go to the essence of the fear that you have and deactivate it. How am I fearing? Like, if anything, you're making me laugh with these notions of fear and death. Actually, you're reaching a bit, and I'm seeing that your matrix is a bit, I can see the holes in your matrix, meaning when someone's trying to build a world inside of a world and they don't complete it or it's distorted, it's easy to see the cracks in it. So it's like, I can't really buy into that whole thing you got going on with fear and death, because your other stuff and what you built is a little shaky and I can see through it.